All right, welcome to another deep dive. You know me, always excited to explore something new. And today, we're diving into the world of cloves.
Cloves, huh?
Cloves. Yeah, I know, it might seem a little ordinary. I mean, they're sitting right there in your spice rack.
Yeah.
You probably use them for, baking or mulling cider.
Great holiday spices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But trust me, there's a whole lot more to cloves than meets the eye. We're going to unpack some surprising research today.
Oh, I gotta hear.
So our deep dive is based on a YouTube video by Dr. Syed Faisal Chilani. He really breaks down the science behind the health benefits of cloves. And before we jump in, just a quick reminder that this is for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for, actual medical advice.
Always good to emphasize that.
Absolutely. Think of this as like a starting point for your own exploration.
I like that, a starting point.
Okay, so when I think of cloves, I think flavor, right? Warm, aromatic, kind of spicy. But Dr. Jelani starts by talking about how cloves are actually nutritional powerhouses.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
I know, right? They're packed with fiber and vitamins and minerals, especially manganese and vitamin K.
Interesting.
But the real star of the show here is a compound called eugenol. Eugenol. That's what gives cloves that distinct aroma and taste, but it also seems to be the key to all of their potential health benefits.
So it's not just about the flavor, it's what's driving these health benefits.
Exactly. And Dr. Jelani dives into some pretty fascinating stuff. One of the things that really caught my attention was the potential impact of eugenol on the immune system.
The immune system. Okay, now you've got my attention.
He points to studies suggesting that eugenol can actually increase white blood cell activity. And white blood cells are like the warriors of our immune system, fighting off those nasty infections.
So cloves could potentially be giving our immune system a boost.
That's what the research suggests. In one study, clove extract increased white blood cell activity by a significant percentage.
Wow, that's impressive.
Right. It's not just a tasty spice. It might actually be helping our bodies fight off those bugs. And that's not all. Dr. Jelani also talks about how cloves might play a role in blood sugar control.
Blood sugar, how does that work?
Well, it seems like cloves may stimulate insulin production. And insulin is a hormone that helps regulate blood sugar levels.
So it could be beneficial for people who are trying to manage their blood sugar.
Yeah, exactly. It's a complex area, and more research is needed, but it's definitely a promising avenue.
Definitely worth exploring further.
And here's something else I found really interesting. He mentioned stomach ulcers.
Stomach ulcers, really? I never would have thought of cloves for that.
Me neither. But he explains how cloves, with their anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties, might actually help reduce ulcers. Like the eugenol can soothe inflammation and fight off those bacteria that can contribute to ulcer formation.
Interesting. So it's actually backed by some science, not just an old wives' tale.
Yeah, there's actual research behind it. And speaking of anti-inflammatory, that made me think about all the other areas where cloves could be beneficial, like joint pain, for example.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Eugenol is a natural analgesic, which basically means it acts like a painkiller.
Like a natural pain reliever.
Exactly. And with its anti-inflammatory properties, it could help soothe those achy joints.
Okay, I'm starting to see how versatile this little spice is.
Right. Now, he does mention that you should dilute clove oil with a carrier oil, like coconut oil, before applying it to the skin. Undiluted clove oil can be a bit irritating.
Good to know. So it's powerful stuff. You got to respect its potency.
Yeah, exactly. Moderation is key. And of course, as always, if you have any concerns, it's best to talk to your doctor before using clove oil for, well, anything.
Agreed. Safety first.
Now, while we're talking about inflammation, Dr. Jelani also brought up liver health. He mentioned that cloves might actually protect the liver from damage.
Protect the liver. Now that's intriguing.
Right. He highlighted studies suggesting that clove compounds, especially eugenol, could help reduce liver inflammation and something called oxidative stress.
Oxidative stress, what's that?
Well, think of it like an imbalance in the body. You have too many of these harmful molecules called free radicals, and they can damage cells.
So cloves could help protect the liver from that kind of damage.
That's what the research suggests. But there's an important caveat here. Dr. Jelani also emphasizes that too much clove oil, specifically over 1,000 milligrams, could actually be harmful to the liver.
Oh, wow. So too much of a good thing, huh?
Exactly. Even natural substances can have negative effects if you overdo it.
That's a good reminder for everything, really. Moderation is key.
Absolutely. It's always best to err on the side of caution. Okay, so we've covered immune system, blood sugar, stomach ulcers, joint pain, and even liver health.
All from cloves. I'm amazed.
I know, right? It's pretty incredible. But there's one area I know cloves are famous for, and that's oral health.
Ah, yes. The classic clove remedy for toothaches.
I remember my grandma used to chew on cloves whenever she had a toothache. I always wondered if it actually worked or if it was just, an old wives' tale.
Right. Does it really do anything?
Well, according to Dr. Jelani, it's more than just an old wives' tale. He explains that cloves have incredible antimicrobial properties, especially when it comes to fighting germs in the mouth. They can help clean plaque, reduce tartar, and even ease gum inflammation.
Wow. So Grandma was onto something.
It seems she was. It's amazing how these traditional remedies often have a scientific basis, isn't it?
It really is. There's so much wisdom in those practices that have been passed down for generations.
Absolutely. And this next one really surprised me. Dr. Jelani even touched on the potential of cloves for weight management.
Wait, weight management? How do cloves fit into that?
Well, remember how we talked about cloves potentially reducing liver fat? Well, that connection might play a role in overall weight management, particularly when it comes to reducing belly fat.
So a healthier liver could lead to a healthier weight.
That's the idea. There's emerging research suggesting that connection. Of course, like with everything else we've talked about, more research is needed.
Right, it's all about those ongoing studies, but still, it's fascinating to think about.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, what else did Dr. Jelani cover in his video?
Well, he mentioned a few other intriguing things, like he talked about how clove tea with cinnamon might be helpful for relieving respiratory issues, like colds and coughs.
Oh, that's a good one, especially with cold and flu season coming up.
Right. Could be a good remedy to have on hand.
Anything else you think our listeners should know about?
Well, there's one more topic we should address carefully, and that's cancer prevention. But Dr. Jelani is very cautious about making any big claims here.
Right, it's crucial that we don't overstate anything. What did the video say about cloves and cancer?
The video highlights some early research suggesting that the antioxidants in cloves might help protect cells from damage that could lead to cancer. But, and this is a big tester, but the lab tests he mentioned only involve specific types of cancer cells.
So this doesn't mean that cloves can prevent or cure cancer in humans.
Exactly. We have to be careful about how we interpret those early findings.
Absolutely. It's not a miracle cure or anything like that.
Right. More research is definitely needed.
Okay, so cloves aren't a magic bullet for cancer, but there might be some interesting properties worth exploring further. Let's move on to some of the other potential benefits.
That's good.
What else did Dr. Jelani mention?
He talked about some traditional remedies using cloves, like he described a remedy for headaches where you mix ground cloves with rock salt in warm milk.
Really? I've never heard of that one.
Me neither. But it just goes to show there's a lot of history and tradition surrounding the use of cloves.
It seems like they've been used for just about everything.
Hmm.
What else is on this list of potential benefits?
Well, he briefly mentioned claims about cloves potentially addressing premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. But those are areas where more research is definitely needed.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that.
Definitely. But there was also mention of heart health and blood pressure control.
Right, right. It seems like cloves have a finger in every pie.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? And a lot of it ties back to eugenol's anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties. Remember, it's a natural painkiller and can help reduce inflammation throughout the body.
So cloves could be good for our hearts and blood vessels because of those properties.
Exactly. Dr. Jelani explains how cloves have the potential to reduce fat and cholesterol, and combined with their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, they could be beneficial for heart health and maybe even help regulate blood pressure.
It's incredible how much potential is packed into this tiny little spice. And don't forget about skin health. Dr. Jelani mentioned cloves being beneficial for the skin too, right?
Oh, right. He said that eugenol's antioxidant properties could be even stronger than vitamin E.
Wow, stronger than vitamin E.
That's what he said. Antioxidants protect our cells from damage, so that makes eugenol potentially beneficial for acne, blemishes, even scar reduction.
That's amazing. This little spice is a real powerhouse.
It really is.
We've covered so much already, but we're just getting started. What's next on our deep dive into the world of cloves?
Well, now that we have a good understanding of the potential benefits, I think it's time to talk about how to actually use cloves, safely and effectively.
Great idea. Let's get into that. All right, so we've heard about all these incredible health benefits, and I'm definitely intrigued. But to be honest, I'm not quite sure how to, actually use cloves in my daily life? I mean, besides, sticking a whole clove in my mouth. And that doesn't sound too appealing.
Well, chewing on a whole clove is definitely one way to go, and it's been a traditional practice, for centuries, especially for oral health.
Oh, yeah, my grandma used to do that.
Right. But there are other options if you're not into that. Dr. Jelani mentions a few in his video.
Okay, good. Tell me more. I'm all ears.
Well, the simplest way is to, just incorporate whole cloves into your cooking.
Hmm.
They add that warm, aromatic flavor to dishes, both sweet and savory dishes.
Right.
You could add a few cloves to your next pot of chili or stew.
Makes sense. I've used ground cloves in baking before, too. What about clove tea? I've seen that at the store, but I've never actually tried it.
Clove tea is great. Dr. Jelani actually suggests vacuuming it with cinnamon for respiratory relief.
Oh, right. He mentioned that.
But you can also just enjoy it on its own. Just steep a few cloves in hot water for a couple of minutes.
That's easy enough. Now, speaking of things I've seen at the store, what about clove oil? How do you use that?
Clove oil, yeah. That's a lot more concentrated than whole cloves, so you got to be careful. Use it sparingly. A few drops in a diffuser can create a nice, relaxing atmosphere.
Oh, I like that. I love using essential oils in my diffuser.
Yeah, it's great for that. And Dr. Jelani also mentioned using clove oil topically.
Oh, right. On your skin.
Yeah, but you have to dilute it first, like mix it with a carrier oil, coconut oil, almond oil, something like that.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Because undiluted clove oil, it can be pretty irritating to the skin.
So it's strong stuff.
Yeah, it's potent. You always want to do a patch test first, too, just to be safe.
Good idea. Better safe than sorry, right?
Always. So, yeah, there are lots of ways to use cloves. Where you start really depends on what you're hoping to get out of it.
That makes sense. Like what benefits I'm looking for.
Right. If you just want to boost flavor and maybe get some general health benefits, add some whole cloves to your cooking. Or try the clove tea.
Okay, that sounds easy enough.
If you're thinking about using clove oil, though, I'd definitely do some more research. Maybe talk to an aromatherapist or a healthcare professional just to make sure you're using it safely.
Yeah, good advice. And of course, we should always talk to our doctor before making any big changes to our diet or, health routine, especially if we're taking medications or have any health conditions.
Absolutely. This deep dive is just for information. It's not a substitute for medical advice.
Right. Okay, so we've covered how to use cloves and the importance of, moderation and talking to our doctor. But I'm curious, what about side effects? Are there any risks with, consuming cloves?
That's a great question, and it's something Dr. Jelani addresses in his video, too. It's like, with anything, even if it's natural, there can be side effects if you have too much.
That's true.
With cloves, if you have too much, you could have heartburn, vomiting, in severe cases, even liver problems.
Oh, wow.
Remember we talked about clove oil being harmful to the liver in high doses?
Right.
Same idea applies to eating too many cloves no matter how you're having them.
So just because something is natural doesn't mean it's totally harmless.
Exactly. Too much of a good thing,
Oh, yes, definitely.
And there are some people who should avoid cloves altogether, or at least talk to their doctor first.
Oh, okay, like who?
Pregnant women, children, anyone taking blood thinning medication.
Okay, so it's not just moderation, it's also about individual circumstances.
Exactly. Being aware of those potential interactions is important.
All right. Good to know. I think we've done a good job covering both the benefits and the precautions, right?
Definitely. It's all about being informed, making choices that are right for you.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier about traditional knowledge and modern science kind of coming together. It's fascinating how often that happens. Like with the cloves for toothaches. People have been doing that for ages, and now science is backing it up.
Yeah, it's really interesting how those two worlds intersect. It shows the value of both, traditional wisdom and scientific inquiry.
Right. It's not one versus the other. It's how they work together.
Exactly. Traditional practices, they offer these insights that have been passed down through generations, and then modern science can come in and, test those ideas, figure out how they work.
And in the case of cloves, both traditional knowledge and scientific research seem to be pointing to all these amazing benefits.
That's right. And this deep dive is a perfect example of how exploring those traditional practices can lead to, scientific discoveries and a deeper appreciation for the natural world.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else from Dr. Jelani's video that you think is worth highlighting?
One thing that really stood out to me was his emphasis on how connected everything is in the body. Like he talked about how reducing liver fat could have a ripple effect, could help with weight management, even heart health.
Oh, right. It's all connected, isn't it?
Exactly. It's easy to think about individual benefits, but it's really about the whole system.
Right. Addressing one area can benefit others.
Exactly. And I think that's a really valuable lesson from all this, Think holistically, consider the big picture.
I like that, the big picture. And I'm also curious about your thoughts on his discussion of traditional remedies versus modern medicine. He seems to be advocating for a balanced approach.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart perspective. Traditional knowledge, it comes from centuries of observation. It's got a lot to offer. But modern science gives us the tools to really understand it, refine it.
So it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding that middle ground where they work together.
Right. Combining the best of both worlds, that's how we unlock those new possibilities for health and healing.
Well said. I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up this part of our conversation. But before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with a question. Given everything you've learned, how would you incorporate cloves into your own life?
That's a great question.
Whether it's for the health benefits or just for the amazing flavor. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. What resonates with you? We always want to hear from our listeners.
You can find us on social media or leave a review. We love connecting with you all.
And who knows, maybe your experiences will inspire others to, explore cloves a little more.
Exactly. All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of cloves. I have to say, I'm blown away by how much we learned about this common spice.
Me too. It's a reminder that even the simplest things can be full of surprises.
Absolutely. So next time you're at the spice rack, take a moment to appreciate the power of cloves. They might just be more than meets the eye. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and happy listening. It's really amazing, isn't it, how much we just, take for granted. Like, cloves have always been in my kitchen, but I never really, thought about them like this, all this history and stuff.
That's what I love about these deep dives. Yeah, we get to uncover all these layers, and I don't know, it just gives you a whole new perspective.
Totally. I'm already thinking about all the ways I can use cloves, not just in cooking, but for all these, health benefits too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That clove tea with cinnamon, that sounds perfect for when I get a cold.
Oh, for sure, especially with winter coming, right?
Exactly. And I don't know, maybe I'll find some new recipe or something, who knows?
Experiment, see what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And, one thing I really appreciate about Dr. Jelani is he doesn't just present the information. He encourages us to think for ourselves,
I agree, yeah. Be curious, ask questions.
Exactly.
He's got that good balance, the science and the traditional wisdom.
Yeah, it's not about picking sides. It's about how it all fits together.
Exactly, yeah. Finding that sweet spot.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, actually. We've covered so much today. I mean, the benefits of cloves, how to use them safely.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But I think the most important takeaway is, that sense of exploration.
Keep learning, right.
Yeah. Be curious, ask questions. There's always something new to discover, even in the most ordinary things.
Like cloves, who knew?
Right. So whether you're a clove expert or just starting to, learn about them, I hope this deep dive inspired you to, look a little closer, dig a little deeper.
Your world is full of wonders, isn't it?
It really is. And hey, maybe you'll even share your own clove discoveries with us.
Oh, yeah. We'd love to hear them.
You can find us on social media, leave a review, whatever you like. We love hearing from you all.
Keep in touch.
All right, folks. That's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of cloves. It was a fascinating journey, wasn't it?
It really was. Learned a lot.
So next time you're in the kitchen, take a moment to appreciate the power of this amazing little spice. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and happy listening.